Well, hey there, everybody. Welcome. Thanks for joining us to another deep dive. I'm joined today by Saul Leiken. He's the USA category leader for Turbo and Active. And for those of you possibly like me who maybe don't know exactly what that means, Saul, could you tell us a little bit more about what it is that you do?
Of course, Jared. Happy to. Hi, everybody. I'm Saul Leiken, like bacon. Some people know me as Captain Electric here in Specialized USA. As Jared mentioned, my job is to lead the categories of Turbo and Active and Youth in the USA. So the job of the category leader primarily is to be responsible for our go-to-market planning and strategy and execution for our respective categories. So that's everything from working with our product teams to ensure that we're bringing the right bicycles to market here in the USA, working with our marketing teams to create and execute on our launch campaigns and our general advertising and awareness campaigns, as well as working with our inventory planning teams and our finance teams to make sure our bikes are priced properly and we have enough inventory for everybody. As mentioned, I am the category leader for Turbo and for Active. So in the case of Turbo, that kind of spans across all of our rider experiences. I'm lucky enough to team up with my other category leaders. Say that bike behind you, the S-Works Turbo Levo, I get to work with our pal Zach Israel when it comes to bikes like the Turbo Levo. But when it comes to a bike like the Creo SL, I get to work with our buddy Elliot Lane on the roadside. And then on the bikes like we're talking about today, like the Turbo Vado and the Vado SL, I embody that all by myself because I have both sides of that, the turbo side and the active side. And those are, of course, my two favorite categories, and they just so happen to be the two categories that are most highly in demand right now, right? We know how crazy the demand is for our analog active bikes, and the demand for our turbo bikes is just as crazy, not far behind in terms of that demand. So it's really a fun time to be here, and thanks so much for inviting me on. I can't wait to bring my two categories together today to talk about Turbo Active.
Yeah, absolutely, Saul. And thank you for taking the time to come on. It sounds like you've got your hands in a lot of different factors of the business and the market. And I know, like you said, these are your two favorite topics. You really embody this. You live in the city, you commute, you pick up groceries and do all these things. So I can't wait to pick your brain about this really exciting thing. I'm particularly fired up to talk about Turbo Active really with you right now, especially, we're in sort of a unique moment in time, right, when the role of the bicycle, for us in shaping the future, it really hasn't been any more relevant than it is now. And when I say our future, we're talking about the collective future, right? We're really talking about across the globe. Some things are changing right here. I think you can see we're looking at the Paris expansion since 1900, right? And that's not unique to Paris. We're seeing this across the world. We've really reached a tipping point right now. We're looking at 68% of the world's population will live in and around cities by 2050. Cities around the world, as you can imagine, right? They're all rethinking road space. We're all trying to figure this out together. But city planners rethinking road space and addressing this, what do they have their eye on? It's probably no guess. They're looking at 2 wheels, not 4. So bicycles really are the future, right? And in a way, Saul, this is maybe not something necessarily new. Bicycles really leading the way of road space in the cities. Right, this signals us almost coming back full circle. You told me a little story about the League of American Wheelmen. Could you tell us a little bit more about that? I think it's totally fascinating and really speaks to where we are.
Yeah, absolutely, Jared. I'd be happy to. I want to start by, let's do an exercise. You'll be the guinea pig, but everyone following along at home and at the office and in their bike shops can try it too. So close your eyes and imagine yourself back in the year 1880. And you live in New York City. You're walking out of your house. You're going to you're a dapper guy. You own a clothing store. You're going to your clothing store to go sell some suits. You're going to your haberdashery, we'll call it that. And
I like it.
step over some horse poop because of the horse carriages.
Ruined my boots.
You see a guy riding a safety bicycle down the street. A safety bicycle is what we know as a bicycle today, a chain-driven bike. This guy's lucky if he's got pneumatic tires on it, but he certainly doesn't have a suspension. So he's bouncing down the road, and you see that, and you say, man, that looks nice, but except for all that bumping down the road. That doesn't sound like so much fun. And you get the idea to get your pals together and figure out a way to reduce the bumpiness on the road, but not through developing an awesome suspension like on the Levo right behind you, but by actually improving the roads that you're riding on. And that was the birth of something called the Good Roads Movement, which started in the late 1800s. And it was led by bicyclists, and it was led by this organization, the League of American Wheelmen. Their primary mission was to advocate for the paving of roads all across America. At that time, there were very few paved roads in some cities. There were certainly no paved roads connecting cities to one another. And we were leading this movement to try and get roads made the way we know them today. And of course, back in 1880, that was before cars really existed at all, and certainly not at a widespread level. So the League of American Wheelmen started and led that charge. Some interesting things about the League of American Wheelmen. They were like the preeminent bicycling organization of the time. So not only were they the leading advocacy group, but they were the USA Cycling back then as well. They were the head of all the racing, and especially the amateur racing that was happening in the United States. And if you can believe it, back then, bicycle racing was the national pastime. More people would go to, a track race at Madison Square Garden, and they would go to a doubleheader between the New York Yankees and the New York Baseball Giants. So bicycling was really central to our culture and central to transportation at the time. So that was the start of the League of American Wheelmen, and that organization is still around today. Today, they're known as the League of American Bicyclists. Their mission is a little bit different today. They're primarily they still do some advocacy on the federal level, and they do a lot of educational work, still working to help people ride their bicycles safely for transportation.
That's what an incredible story. And so to reiterate, because today it seems, to me, as a lifelong cyclist and generally an outcast from our nation's stick and ball sports obsession, it seems unfathomable that there really was once upon a time in this country specifically that cycling was the pastime, that these were heavily watched sporting events. And like you said, the track events in New York City, 6-day long events and things. And so this group, put them on, and in cycling, that was it, right? That was what we did. That's what we watched. It was our sporting, it was our function. It was practical, everything. And I find it interesting that, that this early group, born out of this need, sort of literally paved the way for ultimately cars to come along. And obviously, that served a purpose, and that's really taken over for a long time. But we're getting our time back now, aren't we, as cyclists in the cycling community? And I think, cars, for obvious reasons, especially in cities, urban environments, we're running out of space for them. And now with cycling, though, specifically e-bike technology, we're really making it more relevant than ever and more possible to really embrace this. And this came out a couple of years ago, and this Votto was really sort of an early tool and something that we came to market with. It's it's been very successful for us, right? It's an award-winning urban e-bike platform. It's got unparalleled handling. It's got the integration. It's got the range. This bike has really brought a ton of people into the Turbo family. Saul, the Vado, this has been a big success, but nothing is really without drawbacks, right? For many reasons, this is absolutely great. For some reasons, for some people, it may not be ideal. So I'm hoping that maybe you could tell us a little bit more about what we were solving for when we set out for an additional option in this category.
Of course. Let me start a little bit by talking about what we were setting out to do with the Votto to begin with, and then I'll get us to Vado SL. So the Votto, many of you might remember the bike that preceded the Votto, this Turbo S. That was our first foray into the pedal assist space, and it was a pretty damn good one for a lot of us, right? It was a bright red rocket ship that could take you up to 28 miles an hour. Was so much fun for cyclists like you and me to get on and ride. But we knew that bike, while it was a lot of fun for us, it wasn't quite right for everyone, and we needed to widen we need to open our arms a bit more to welcome more people into the experience. So the Vado was created to address some of the things that prevented the Turbo S from being more widely adopted. So some of the things we liked about the Turbo S, I already mentioned the speed, the geometry, right? It did have a flat bar, but it was a little bit closer to a road bike geometry, a little more aggressive. It didn't have any suspension, which folks like us who are used to handling a bike, not such a big deal going 28 miles an hour, but maybe a newer rider, that's a bit more challenging.
Yeah, let me pause you there. I'm sorry, Saul. Speaking to the newer riders, when we use terms like aggressive to describe the geometry, what exactly is that talking about? And how does that relate to their experience?
Yeah, really good question. Thank you. So I tend to categorize riding positions into three basic ones, and this is just to kind of level the playing field a little bit. I call them aggressive, neutral, and upright. The quickest way to think about it, I think aggressive is your stereotypical road bike position. Those of you working in bike shops who have worked at bike shops, a lot of customers who come in, maybe they say, oh, I don't want a road bike. I don't want to be way stretched out like this. That's how they think of it. To me, that's what I mean. Something like that, that's an extreme example, but that's what I mean when I say aggressive. Something kind of stretched out, leaning pretty far forward over the bike. Neutral, you can think of neutral like your mountain bike riding position. You're still a little bit further forward. You're not fully, your back's not totally straight, but you're kind of in between that aggressive leaned over position and that upright position. Your elbows are bent a little bit. You're leaning forward. You got your weight kind of midway over the bike. And then, of course, upright's probably the most self-explanatory. That's when your back is straight up. The handlebars are going to be significantly higher than the saddle, keeping your back nice and straight.
Okay.
Those are the three things.
Thanks.
Yeah, of course. I think when it comes to these flat bar e-bikes, to use some bikes we might all be familiar with, that Turbo S, I was kind of putting in the aggressive category. Vado, I would probably put in the neutral category. And a Como, I'd put in the upright category. That's where your back's totally straight. So that's kind of things.
Perfect.
So going back to the Turbo S and the changes we made to get to Vado, the last thing I'd say is that rear hub motor, super powerful, lots of torque, really fun, but it threw off the balance of the bike a little bit. And again, folks who are used to handling a bike like yourself, you're a great downhill mountain biker, you probably have no problem handling that sucker. But the average rider may have a bit harder time on the hub motor. I see you feeling at my dog Tinkerbell behind me. I'm sorry, everybody, that she's getting jealous of all this bike talk. So that was the Turbo S. Now, how do we get from Turbo S to Vado? Well, Vado was intended to address some of those things I just mentioned. We moved the hub motor to a mid-drive motor in the middle of the bike, and that lowered the center of gravity and kept the handling really nice and smooth. We changed the riding position, going from that aggressive to the neutral, like we just talked about. And we added a suspension fork in order to smooth out the bumps when you're going 28 miles an hour. That's how we got to it. It was a really perfect bike, I think, for a lot of riders. A lot of these folks that we see returning to cycling, learning to ride again, coming back and getting on a bike. Votto's great for that. It brings them that feeling of freedom that we all know as cyclists, but they don't have to sweat so much or get quite as out of breath in order to have that feeling.
Sure.
With a Vado, as you mentioned, nothing's without its drawbacks. All that awesome power and that readily accessible feeling of freedom does come at the expense of some weight. I think that's probably the biggest thing about Vado is that it's not the lightest bike that we make. And we wanted to figure out a way to improve the Vado experience by bringing a lighter weight bike to market. And as luck would have it, we had spent a lot of time and money and energy developing this SL 1.1 motor system that first we did the SL, then we brought it to the Levo SL, and we said, oh man, we cannot wait to bring this to the Vado. And once we did, well, we're really on to something. I think my favorite headline from our launch was about called the Vado SL the holy grail of e-bikes, which I think is pretty good name for it. It's really the best of all possible worlds. You get enough assistance to get you up and over those hills. You have a lightweight bike that's easy to put on your bike rack or take inside your apartment. But you can still work as much as you'd like to get a little bit of a workout if that's your motivation for having a bike as well. And that's probably the kind of icing on the cake, I'd say, about why we sought to create the Vado SL. I talked about our arms to more and more riders. We did that by going from Turbo S to Vado, and still more riders that we could welcome, and we wanted to find them. And we did that with the Vado SL and putting that bike at the intersection of transportation, which we had from Vado, and some fitness we kind of borrowed from a bike like Cirrus, right? That SL 1.1 motor, providing 2 times your power rather than 4, gives you an opportunity to get your heart rate up a little bit more if that's what you'd like to do.
Absolutely. So this puts, where I thought Vado really was great in putting the control in people's hands to dictate their experience and what they wanted out of a bike. This is almost expanding upon that even further, or still filling that need, but tailored to sort of a different audience. But, that's awesome. There's a great place to go. We're all riders, like you said, kind of coming from developing this SL 1.1 motor system and then figuring out all these other places where it's relevant and bringing this into the Turbo Active is incredible. And that's not the only example. There's also Future Shock on these, right? So we've been talking about the Vado SL, but let's have a look. This is it. What exactly are we looking at? I think this is a 5.0 equipped. I see fenders, I see lights, I see a heads-up display. Like I said, I'm pretty sure I see the smooth boot of a Future Shock up there. There's fenders. This thing's decked out. It looks like a great inner city utilitarian weapon. What can you tell us a little bit more about what we're looking at?
Jared, next time I play a game of Where's Waldo, I want you on my team.
Yeah, guys. I had LASIK done, so you want me on a team.
You've got a keen eye for that Future Shock. You can even see that in this photo. You hit the nail on the head. We are looking at a Vado SL 5.0 EQ or equipped. This bike is the top of the line Vado SL that we offer. You hit on some of the great things that the bike has to offer. I think the biggest differentiator between the 5.0 and the 4.0 is that Future Shock up top. The 4.0 it's fully rigid. The 5.0 features 20 millimeters of travel to suspend the rider with our Future Shock. It also features a carbon fiber front fork. That helps, of course, with the weight as well as the ride quality. 5.0 features a 12-speed, one-by drivetrain and Tektro hydraulic disc brakes. Also, all 5.0 models do come with our TCD. That is our heads-up display, like you mentioned. I'm going to excuse my dog for
absolutely
1 moment.
Yeah, no worries. Well, I know a thing or two about jealous dogs too. Fortunately, mine's in the house, but thanks, Saul. I do love Tinkerbell. That feisty little dog. You have a trailer sometimes you tow her around in with the Vado. Is that true?
I sure do. I'll tell you a little more about it a little bit later. But yes, I do. I kept her in here because I did a webinar a few weeks ago for the Vado SL launch, and I got some comments that people wanted to hear from Tinkerbell during that webinar. So I left her in here, but she couldn't quite stay behaved. She's just so excited about Turbo Active. You know, she couldn't contain herself.
Yeah. Well, so it seems like she's just getting pretty antsy to get out for a little pedal herself, right?
Yeah, right. I think I left off with our hydraulic. No, I left off with the TCD display. That's what it was.
Yeah.
All 5.0 models come with a TCD display. The 4.0 models do come with a mount for it, but if you want it on the bike, you do have to pay for it aftermarket as a rider. We talked about how this is an equipped bike. Well, the equipped case of the Vado SL, that stands for, first and foremost, it stands for the fenders. So you can see our Drytech fenders on the front and rear wheels. The best fender solution out there on the market. We used our wind tunnel to test those babies to make sure that you're going to stay as dry as humanly possible. Also
extraordinary amount of tech in those things.
It also stands for the rear rack. So you can see that rear rack integrated into the rear fender there. That rack is a rack time rack, so it's fully compatible with the Snap-it system, just like the rack on the Vado. The other thing that the equipped models have is the tire spec. So if you take a look closely at that tread, you all might recognize the Nimbus 2 tire. That tire is spec'd on this bike because we believe that the riders choosing the equipped models probably tend a little bit more towards that transportation motivation, which we think means that they're going to ride primarily on the pavement. So we wanted to spec a tire on there that had a great tread for the pavement, as well as had flat protection against the things you might encounter on the pavement. So an errant curb or maybe some broken glass or something like that.
Sure.
To the unequipped models, you see a different tire spec. I'm going to stay on the tires for a moment. You'll see there that bike features the Pathfinder Sport tires. And that's because we believe that the riders who select the unequipped bikes are going to lean a little bit more in the other direction, lean more towards that fitness motivation. And we see that rider, a bit more like everyone's favorite analog bike these days, the Cirrus X. You'll recognize the Pathfinder. That's a tire we spec on the Cirrus X among our awesome gravel bikes as well, like the Diverge. This tire is designed, I believe it's something like an 80-20 split between pavement and a little bit of off-road, some gravel, fire road type stuff. It's a really versatile tire. It's fast rolling on the pavement. It's got tremendous grip and stuff when you're going off-road. And we think that this rider, really values the versatility of that when they're seeking their fitness. So that's why we spec this with that tire. And then the last thing I'd call out, you can actually kind of tell in this photo, all models, equipped or unequipped, come with front and rear lights. That's because we really believe in being seen, right? Everyone's probably heard of our HyperViz collection. That truly embodies what we believe about being seen on the road. And we're able to bring that to our bikes that have a battery in them by integrating lights into the front and rear of them. So on the unequipped models that we were just looking at, the rear light is integrated into the saddle. And for the equipped model, the rear light is integrated into the rear fender, just like they are on the Vado.
Got it. Super clever, that light integration to the back of the saddle, right? That's sort of another implementation of SWAT. Where
it exactly is. It uses those SWAT mounts in order to put it on there. You got it.
Totally fantastic. And it's a great looking bike. Personally, I'm completely ecstatic in awaiting delivery for this thing. Like you nailed it, the Cirrus X rider, this is going to be, as primarily a mountain biker, personally, I can only say that this is going to be my around town, my sort of go-to swing a leg over, grab my lunchtime adventure sort of thing. I'm in Sacramento. I don't have big mountains around and hills and things. So, it's a little bit of a haul sometimes to get a good mountain bike ride in. But there are endless amounts of gravel paths and sort of mellow, meandering single track river trails and things of the sort. So, I absolutely have this thing pegged as my tool to get out there and ultimately ride way more than I ordinarily would, because if it's not that, you know, I mean, I do have some other options. I'm not going to get as far. I won't see things in sort of my condensed time frame. And so this is opening new doors, new opportunities as a seasoned rider. You know, I'm always excited when something can come along, a product can come along and sort of reshape the way that I view my activity.
That's music to my ears, Jared. Thank you for sharing that. I think that that really captures what's so special about the Vado SL. I talked before that, you know, the holy grail, right? What's so cool to me about this bike is that it appeals seemingly equally to a core cyclist like yourself and to the everyday person out there on the road just looking for some new way to get around, new activity to do, something like that. It appeals equally to everybody. It's really, really exciting.
Yeah. Yeah. And like you said, you know, those people in the cities where getting on public transit, you know, transportation, which with COVID and things right now, that may not be a thing, but still getting these things onto subways, up the stairs and things like that, where the Votto was a bit cumbersome. I mean, this sort of checks all the boxes. Ultimately, like you said, people are going to be riding more. But we've been talking, you know, back and forth about equipped and unequipped. And, you know, the equipped thing really piques my interest because that really makes this thing a very usable transportation within cities and going grocery shopping and things like that. But I know I'm asked constantly by people out in the wild who are looking at sort of transitioning their lifestyle a little bit and trying to get away from the cars. But there's a lot to take into consideration. I mean, for so many years, generations, we've been a car-focused culture where turning the key and hopping over to the grocery store to pick up some milk and eggs and coming back, we don't think twice about it. Yes, absolutely, you can do this on bicycles, but if you're not well versed in it and you're not practiced, there are a lot of things to take into consideration. How do you equip these bikes, right? We say it's equipped, it's got fenders and racks, and that's fantastic, but we do need to go beyond that. And people, you know, we need to be able to tell and show what it means and how exactly do you equip these and to meet whatever needs that they might have. Now, you mentioned you're in the city, you live this lifestyle. So I'd like to share some photos of your personal setup and have you kind of run through the how and why you have your bike outfitted the way that you do.
I would love for you to do that, Jared. Before you share your screen, though, I want to say something. I want to share my T-shirt with the group because I saw the chat came in, a question asking, what does my shirt say? And another chat came in from one of our colleagues, Mr. Mark Cody, who I'm sure many or most of you out there know Mark, is leading our Turbo Active product development right now. And he sent a chat in to say that his car has not moved in weeks. He has been living Vado SL. He lives, I believe, in Aptos near Santa Cruz, and has been living his whole life on that Vado SL. He's calling it the perfect Tesla replacement, which I think is. And speaking of replacing your Tesla or replacing your car, I want to share my shirt because this really, I'm going to warn you, this is a provocative statement, so be careful. It's not profane. It's just provocative, but it is purposely provocative. But this harkens back to the conversation we were having about the League of American Bicyclists, and I think this kind of encapsulates how much I believe in the bicycle as a form of transportation and how little I believe in the car. So my shirt says, street parking is theft. Street parking is theft, right? So this is super, super provocative, right? A lot of folks like to think I live on a street in San Francisco. If I went outside, the street is covered in private vehicles being parked on the street. Yeah, those people might pay for a residential parking permit or something like that. But the idea behind the shirt and the saying and the belief here is that the streets are made for people. The streets are not made for cars. The streets are made for people. They're made for us to move around in. and for us to decide what's the best way for us to utilize those streets in order to get where we need to go. And I believe, and I think there are plenty of folks out there, and in fact, increasingly so, there are increasing numbers of people who believe that the bicycle is the best way to get around, and that we want space on our roads to be able to use it. So let's stop letting cars steal the parking spaces on the road, and instead open them up to open our streets to folks like us who want to use our bikes for transportation.
Yeah, bring the power to the people who want to go somewhere.
Heck yeah. All right, so now you can share some photos. This is how I live that. So I do not drive my car around. I live in San Francisco. I don't know if I mentioned that. So I live in the city of San Francisco. I've been a city boy all my life. That's into riding bicycles first and foremost was for transportation. And so living here in San Francisco, until I got my Vado SL, this was the only vehicle I used. Now I kind of split time a little bit between my Vado and my Vado SL, and I'll talk about that as well. But what you're looking at is this here is my Turbo Vado 5.0. You can see this bike is completely stock. So right down to the BG Fitness pedal, my cranks. And I've added a couple accessories to it, but I haven't changed any of the parts of this bike whatsoever. If you can see the things that I've added, you can see my bright red bungee cord that I have on the back. You can see my trunk bag, which I'll give you some details about in a second. You can see, of course, my Z cage, and if you look closely, you'll see my SWAT tool mounted on the bottom there. And you can see underneath the top tube, that is actually a folding lock for my bike, and I'll tell you more about that in a moment. And if you look real closely, you can see on my stem a cell phone holder, and I'll tell you more about what I do with that as well. So, Jared, do me a favor, go to the next slide.
Yeah. Tell you what, this is a pretty hot looking bike, Saul. I bet you feel like a pretty cool guy on this thing.
Oh, I feel this is like my Batmobile. I feel like Bruce Wayne.
Actually, yeah, if Bruce Wayne just kind of humbled himself and got with it, this is going around on.
So this is what you're looking at. I mentioned, right, our racks are rack time racks. So of course I used a rack time bag to snap into my rack. They call it the snap in system. And this one here is called the rack time Odin bag, O-D-I-N. And it's a trunk bag. So I could unzip those zippers on the top and it would unfold like that. And I could drop stuff into it. That's enough space for like a super burrito or something like that when I go out for lunch. You can see on the left side of the slide, you can see that's actually a water bottle holder there. In my bag, I have my SWAT keg in there, and that's where I keep all my flat fixing materials. Right, if I'm using my bike for transportation, I can't get stuck with a flat tire somewhere or something like that. So I got an extra tube and CO2 and all that jazz in my keg right there. And then on the right, you can see the side of the trunk bag, and this might be the coolest part of it. That's a pocket, so you could unzip the zipper and stash something little in there, maybe your jacket or something like that. But you could also unzip all the way, and there's a little secret behind it, which I'll show you in a moment. Jared, go on to the next slide for me.
Yeah.
So this is kind of the best I could do. It's kind of hard to see when the bag is mounted, but this is that snap-it system I've been talking about. And just above the, let's see, maybe just above the sport in Trigger Sport, if you go straight up from there, you'll see the gray kind of latch looking thing. And that is what the button that you press to remove this bag from the bike. It's also the latch that latches into place when you slide it on. So Jared, if you move just to the right of that gray latch, you can see, move a little to the right. There you go, right there. So you see a little groove, and if you look real closely, you can see a little pin. That is part of the snap system. Basically, you drop the bag onto the rack, and you slide it forward, and that pin slides into the groove, and then that gray latch latches down, and your bag is secure. Once you do it once or twice, it takes, I don't know, definitely less than 5 seconds probably to slide this bag on and slide it back off again. You just gotta line those pins with those grooves, and it snaps right in. So,
incredible.
Moving on to the next slide.
We're looking at the fold out.
Yes, this was the secret behind that side pocket. So this bag actually features fold out panniers. So I unfolded one of them for these photos, but you can see I dropped all I had on me was my jacket when I was taking the pictures. But these bags can actually hold quite a bit of cargo. I've done between the trunk pocket and the 2 side panniers, I can shop for about a week and a half worth of groceries for myself. I could get takeout for me and a date and have room to spare for an extra bottle of wine or 2. There's quite a bit of room in this bag when you unfold both sides of those side panniers. And one of my favorite things, if you look closely, you can see there's all this reflective material there to keep you nice and safe. And maybe the best part, it does not get in the way of our rear light. So you can see on the left side there, the rear light integrated into that fender, and that you're still staying nice and safe. Everyone can see you, and you can carry a bunch of cargo.
Yeah, very clean. This is, I think, a great example of how to effectively kit out your bike as a rider. To have the fashion, the form, the function, the full package. This is a great example. On this, I saw a question pop through the chat here, Saul. Is there a list anywhere that shows where a consumer can find these aftermarket items?
I would point them to the Racktime website. So Racktime, like I said, it's kind of their flagship system. It's called the Snap-It system, and they're very clear on their site about what is compatible with the Snap-It system. I would add that our racks, while I certainly recommend using a Racktime bag, our racks can hold almost any pannier out there on the market. A typical pannier, whether it has a hook and bungee type of connection or something more advanced like a Ortlieb, I think they call it a QL2 or 3 mounting system, all of that stuff can be mounted to these racks. So while we are highlighting Racktime ones here, there are really plenty of options out there. And for those of you at bike shops, at the moment, Racktime is distributed via J&B. J&B is your distributor if you want to access the complete line of the Racktime Snap-It system. Cool thing about the Snap-It system, one thing to add there, you can actually just buy the mount for it and actually put that on whatever you want. So I've seen people put it on a milk crate or even design a really cool like wooden crate that's all fancy and use that as their rear basket or something like that. So there's lots of great options out there on them via Racktime.
Absolutely. Maybe this is recorded, obviously, and consumers, retailers, everybody, the world can find this video on our SBCU YouTube channel. Just go to YouTube, search for that, and maybe what we'll do is I can compile a few links to point people to some of these accessories we're talking about. I'll leave it in the description area of the video.
Well, while we're still talking about the cargo on my Vado, because we're going to go to some in a moment.
Which you want so much. There's a lot to talk about.
Yeah, I want to talk. You mentioned the trailer for me and Tinkerbell. I just want to talk about that for a moment. So our bikes are fully compatible with hitch-mounted trailers, axle hitch-mounted trailers, I should say. So what that means, right? The rear spacing on our bikes is 12 by 148. Sorry, 12 by 142, I think. Excuse me, that. And double check the specs. I'm sorry, I'm not sure that on top of my head. The point is, I know that you can get.
We'll get a fact check.
Yeah, we'll do a fact check. But the point is, I know they are out there available on the market from Burley, from Robert Axle Project. You can get a hitch through axle to mount a trailer to your bike. And our Turbo Tech Squad is chiming in. Thank you very much, folks. 12 by 142 with a 1.0 millimeter thread pitch. 12 by, I misread it. 12 by 148 with a 1.0 millimeter thread pitch. I'm going to say that one more time. 12, 148 with a 1.0 millimeter thread pitch. That is the axle you're looking for, the through axle you're looking for in order to mount a trailer onto your bike. Personally, I have a Burley flatbed trailer, which I find to be super valuable for a lot of things. I can hitch it up to my Vado, and I can actually I put normal groceries in my Racktime bag, and then I can go all the way to Costco and fill up with all the toilet paper and dog food that I can carry on my flatbed trailer, and then I can ride my bike home and go. I can even throw a crate onto my flatbed trailer, put Tink in it, and take her to the dog park. We've had a lot of fun doing that during the time of coronavirus, exploring new dog parks around the city. We'll put her in the trailer and I'll ride her around to a new park she hasn't been to before because she's cooped up just like the rest of us. So, like I said, all of our parks are compatible with that. You can do that on a Como as well. You can do it. You could do it on a Vado SL and on the Vado. So all of these turbo active bikes are capable of towing a trailer. And you don't always have to use it for cargo or for your dog. You can tow a kid's trailer as well.
Of course.
Let's move on to. Maybe we shouldn't. Go ahead, Jared.
Yeah, no. Let's. We're talking about all of these great features and everything you could have, but there's no two ways about it. There's a lot of dollars tied up in this package right here. Generally, much less than a car, but still nothing that you don't want to be very cautious about. So I really like your what you're running here for security. Can you tell us a little bit more about what we're looking at?
Yeah. Well, of course, we're looking at, once again, I got to plug in my Z cage with the SWAT tool. I just think that's so awesome. It's so nice to have that tool there available to me if I need to adjust my saddle or change my flat tire or something like that, get my wheel off. It's awesome. But if you look right above that, you'll see the Avis Bordeaux Granite Plus folding lock. This lock has become kind of the gold standard of security with bicycles in general, but especially with e-bikes. It's because it's really convenient. You can see it folds into a nice little package, but it unfolds into about a 50 centimeter long lock, which means I can lock both my rear wheel and my frame around something as wide, even wider than a parking meter or something like that. I don't have to find a nice narrow pole. I have a few options, but it's still very secure. This is just as secure as the most secure U-lock out there. So I really love this lock for securing the bike, but I might even like the way I get to carry it on the bike even more than that. And that's what you can see here. If you look, it folds up real nice. And this picture, you can see the underside of the top tube. There are actually some bottle cage mounts there. We've found out ways to add bottle cage mounts to all parts of bikes. The new Diverge has them on the top of the top tube, and the Votto has it underneath. And you could mount a water bottle cage here, and you could hold the water bottle, of course, with the right specialized cage, it would be nice and secure. However, what this is really intended for is the way I'm using it here. You can see it's a very clean installation. You just screw this mount. This mount came with my Avis lock, and you just screw this mount right into those water bottle mounts, and you're done. So I screwed in 2 screws, just like mounting a water bottle cage. And then you see those arms that are actually spring-loaded. So I literally just slide the lock in there, close those arms with my fingers, and I'm good to go. And then I just open them up when I'm ready to lock my bike, take the lock out, and lock it up. Convenient, super clean looking, and really great.
Absolutely brilliant.
One of the
and it looks like you still have water bottle access too with this lock.
Oh, absolutely! I can actually fit a full. What is it? What's our big? 26 ounces, I think, is our largest.
24, something like that.
But yeah, whatever. I can fit our largest water bottle in my Z cage and get the lock in there as well.
Fantastic. And you had mentioned the Votto step through as well, which has bosses not on the top tube. Those are on top of the battery cover. I've looked at those and thought, well, why is that there? There's no conceivable way I'm going to put a bottle cage and a bottle there. Is this what that was intended for?
You hit the nail on the head once again, Jared. That's exactly what those are for. So when your top tube is a little close to the down tube on the step through models, that's a perfect. This is a perfect way to utilize those water bottle mounts to put your Avis lock in there. And then you can use a different solution. Maybe you get an Odin bag like I have, and you put your water bottle in that rear bottle mount holder or something like that. Alternatively, if you have a Como and you have those top tube mounts that you do want to put a water bottle cage in, but you don't want to put your Avis lock on your battery cover. Well, what you can do, Avis will ship you with the lock and the mount. It comes with some steel zip ties that you can actually use to wrap around the tubes of the bike and create a secure and almost as clean mounting system for your lock. That's how I set up my father's Como, actually. I have his on the seat with those steel zip ties.
Okay. What a time to be alive. We've got great options in bikes. We've got great options of kit. We've got great options for safety. You know, this is all coming together, but we still have, I think, more options here. What are we looking at here? I see something going on down, obviously, over the fork.
Yeah, this is the cell phone mount that I was talking about. This particular one, it's a pretty basic one. I think it's made by Night Eyes. It's just a little plate with some silicone straps on either end that kind of grips the corners of my iPhone. But I really love to have this because for two reasons. First one, you know, I know San Francisco pretty well. I've lived here for almost 3 years. But in the event I'm going to a part of town I'm not super familiar with, I can turn on Google Maps or something like that to give me some directions. I don't use it for that as often as I use it for the second reason, which, of course, I think a lot of people are going to guess the words that are about to come out of my mouth. Mission control. It's awesome to have mission control right at my fingertips when I put my phone right on the stem, and then I'm able to, you know, turn on smart control. I'm able to tune my different modes. You know, maybe my ride's going to take me up and over Twin Peaks here in San Francisco. That's a really big hill to climb. Maybe I want to spice up my sport mode for that climb, but turn it back down when I get back into a more flat part of the city. It's awesome for
maybe to beef up with some more groceries than you had expected.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's another time that I often use it. Like, yeah, when I have Tink in the trailer, I have different tuning for my bike than I do when I'm just riding it on my own. So great point there, Jared. Yeah. So that's just another little area that you can utilize. You know, the reason I took this photo is to show that, yes, we do have a display, the TCDW, that, you know, some people might think could get in the way of a cell phone mount or something like that. But I wanted to show you that you could actually mount it right on the stem there. And I would have loved to show you it with my cell phone in it, but I was using it to take the photo. So, all right.
Hey, I mean, and it was a great way to show, you know, that it could be done. It shows that TCDW, which is super, super functional. All your heads up data that any discerning rider could really want. But, you know, like you said, I can imagine having mission control right at your fingertips would do nothing but just unlock the most capability out of this piece of equipment. Now that was you were showing a Votto. Votto would, you know, obviously it kind of is what it is. They're all generally equipped. So Vado SL, now we're talking about equipped versus unequipped. But just because maybe an unequipped Vado SL speaks to you and may be just the tool that you need 90% of the time, there are always outliers to any situation. And you have a few photos here of kind of taking a different approach to something that a lot of people may find themselves in. And it's important to show that you wouldn't be pigeonholing yourself into having just an unequipped bike the whole time you have it. You can really take these things a few different directions and open up a lot of options and be incredibly versatile. So this looks like your maybe a Vado SL unequipped, however done up a little bit. So I will share this. So I think you should see an SL 5.0 unequipped, but you got some bags on here. What's going on?
Yeah. So this is the Vado SL 5.0, and yeah, as you mentioned, it's unequipped. I gotta say, this colorway is in very high demand, not just from retailers and riders, but I can tell you all of my colleagues here at Specialized are drooling over this particular thing. Don't worry, riders and retailers, you're gonna get bikes before them. This particular one I have was a pre-production thing, so once again, not stealing any bikes from you all. What I did here, so I got 5.0 unequipped because I already had a Vado and that was equipped, and so I wanted to try the other type of motivation for the Vado SL. just talked about how beautiful of a bike it is. But after living with it for a few days, I realized that while I was reaching for it quite a bit when I was going on a quick errand, so maybe I wasn't doing my grocery shopping for the whole week, but I was going out in a typical time in my life. I might be going out to meet somebody or something like that. Given that we're all sheltered in place, it was more running to the bank or to the post office or an essential errand that I had to do. Maybe I had to carry a little something with me, but I didn't. Like I said, it wasn't groceries. It wasn't all my gear to get to the office down at Morgan Hill. It was just a couple greeting cards I was going to send my mom and my grandmother for Mother's Day or something like that. And that's when I remembered my Burr bags. I had them on the Verge, and decided, let's try them on the Vado SL. So I mounted my pack. You can see there, I believe that's the medium-sized Burr frame pack. And the top tube bag, oftentimes you put that top tube bag near the stem. I decided to put it near my seat post because the future shock can make it a little complicated, although it's not at all a deal breaker. The thing that really gets in the way of, though, is the TCU on the top tube, right? So that display there that has my battery life and the ability for me to turn on and off the bike, well, I'd be covering that up if I put the top tube bag up at the front. So that's why I put it at the back. I think you can see it still looks pretty good, I think. Looks pretty clean and does not get in the way of my thighs or anything like that when I'm pedaling. So, this allows me to carry quite a bit of stuff. So you see, I didn't get a second Avis mount for this bike for my lock. So I can drop my lock in the Burr bag. I put the greeting cards for my mom, put those in there. In the top tube bag, I can throw my cell phone, my keys to my lock, my wallet, stuff like that. And it gives me just enough cargo capacity to do some light errands or maybe to keep like I said, a burrito or something in there for a snack. But it still maintains the cool look of the bike as well as the lightweight handling of it as well.
Absolutely. And you know what? I wonder, maybe we need to get somebody in the wind tunnel to test this, but that top tube bag being down at the seat post like that, I do wonder if that's maybe a little bit of an aerial advantage, kind of reducing your frontal drag. I think maybe your thighs might be blocking that inherently turbulent space anyway. Maybe we'll have to do a little research on that. But I think you're on this, truthfully.
Oh, well, thank you. I'm not known for my innovation in the equipment space, but I'm glad I can contribute.
You never really know when these things are going to come to light. No, that's really well done, and like you said, I imagine you're probably not putting Tinkerbell in a trailer and towing her around with the Vado SL. I'm sure you could, but maybe if you're a consumer and you're looking to really haul the kid around as efficiently as possible, maybe look at a Vado.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think like I said, I'm lucky enough. I work at Specialized. I'm lucky enough to have a garage full of bikes. Well, it's not really a garage actually. If you look behind me, like I said, I live in San Francisco, tiny little apartment. This is my garage. You can see my bed and all the.
There you go.
1, 2, 3, 4 turbo bikes stacked next to each other. Got a Vado SL, a Creo SL, a Levo SL, and a Levo. My Vado is even in the other room. I'm lucky enough to have a Vado and a Vado SL, and I get to decide, whenever I need to leave the house, well, which one am I going to choose? And how have I been making that decision? Well, I talked a lot about how I use the bikes already. I think the last time I got on my Vado to leave the house, I was going to Costco. Tinkerbell was out of dog food, and I had to get I don't remember how big those bags are. They're like 40 pounds, I want to say.
Yeah, at least 40 pounds, yeah.
Yeah, so
that's
I had
significant.
To get a 40-pound bag of dog food. And of course, while I'm at Costco, I had to get some of the other stuff I love there. I had to get some coffee and some other stuff. I go through in bulk amounts, especially during quarantine. So I reached for the Vado for that one and my trailer. I also reached for the Vado when, again, I live in San Francisco. There are a lot of really big hills in this town. And if I'm going somewhere where I need to be, put together when I show up. So I'm a big fan of the theater. So if I was going to go to see a play, I would have my Vado because I want to dress up just a little bit, even though I live in the casual city of San Francisco, and I don't want to show up even the slightest bit sweaty or something like that. It's been a long time since I've been to a play, thanks to the coronavirus. So these days, since I've had my Vado SL, the only trips I've really used the Vado on are, I mentioned the Costco, and then one time I went to get some takeout from my favorite restaurant, and for me and my roommate, and so I had enough to carry there that I wanted to do on the Vado. Everything else I'm doing on the Vado SL, and that's because it's way easier for me to get it in and out of my apartment. I talked about how I think I live in a garden apartment, also known as a basement apartment, and so I have let's see, there's probably 6 steps to get to my door that you walk down, and then 4 more steps to go like from my front door till I'm all the way into my apartment. And that's steps. There are plenty of folks, and there are folks tuning in here from New York City. I used to live there. I had to walk up 4 flights of stairs when I lived there to get to my apartment. It's not that bad, but even still, it can be a little bit, the Vado can be a little bit unwieldy in that sort of situation. And so, yeah, it's so easy for me just to pick up my Vado SL, and I can basically run out of the house with it because it's that light and that easy to maneuver. So I run out, jump on the bike, and I'm like halfway to where I was going in the amount of time it would take me maybe to get my Vado out of my apartment to begin with. So, like I said, when I've had to go grab a bite to eat or run to the post office or something, I'm choosing my Vado SL.
I see. Yeah. You mentioned taking the Vado SL, literally running out. That reminds me of also a great video you can find on YouTube. Our colleague, Mark Cody, just doing stair repeats with the Vado SL slung over his shoulder. I think what a madman. Shows you can, the agility of that bike and sort of how nimble and truly light that Vado SL is. Did a great job, but what a madman. I don't know if I'd be able to maintain that level of composure with any bike over my shoulder running up and down some stairs.
Just shows you how light the Vado SL is, man. I think you all would be real animals if you could do that with a Vado, but with a Vado SL, it's pretty doable because of how light it is.
Hey, man, that's it. But let's. I'm just going to have this. I'm going to share this last slide here in kind of in closing. So we're wrapping up on the hour. It's flown by. Thank you very much for your time again. But this is really the big question: which Turbo Vado rider are you? We've got the Vado and we've got the Turbo Vado SL, and so just the light bullet points for anybody to just take away. And to think about what rider you might be. Turbo Vado, the big one, 4 times U, as light as 49 pounds, 80 miles range, which really is quite a lot. That's extraordinary with such a robust drive unit. And then we have the Turbo Vado SL, 2 times U amplification, as light as 33 pounds. That's super nimble. My trail mountain bikes that had no motor in it not too long ago, and even currently are at least that, or more in the past. So, I mean, that's remarkably light, and for something that can do all the things it can, what a package. Range even better, up to 120 miles with the optional range extender. And I realized we didn't go into really any detail at all about the range extender in this platform, but there's a lot of information to be found, whether it's mentioned on Levo SL or Turbo Creo SL. Same thing applies to this. Perhaps we'll do a deep dive on the SL drive system overview in the future. That might be a good thing. What do you think, Saul? Should we do that?
That would be great. That sounds like a lot of fun. Until then, I want to give a plug. I know this is your arena, but if you allow me to give a plug for SBCU.com.
Or my guest.
SBCU.com
Yes.
has a lot of awesome content about the SL system, about the Vado, about the Vado SL. Jared and I both mentioned our pal Mark Cody. He stars in a couple awesome videos that just came out last week with the introduction of the Vado SL. So make sure to check those out for sure. That's a great place to get some good information and education on these platforms. And yes, stay tuned. I'd love to do a deep dive on SL platforms in general. And then the other thing I want to call out is our service site. That's a great place to find even more information. It's not as well presented, I'll admit. SBC really has that great focus on education, and Jared and the team do a really, really excellent job with that. The technical service site is more about just like straight up information. Hey, I need this quickly. What's the answer? But I do want to encourage you to go there. You can type in the name of any of these bikes we've talked about, and even the ones we haven't, and you can find all the materials there from all the service parts. But you can even find these amazing features and benefits, guides or workbooks, or they go by a couple different names. But look for the word features and benefits, and you'll find this incredibly detailed PDF that goes through a lot of questions you might have about compatibilities with racks and fenders, or which range extender cable do I need for this bike, or what have you. So there's a lot of good stuff in there as well.
Yes, truly anything that anybody could think to ask, I'm sure is in there. I have mulled over those workbooks, and I mean, truly, it's an encyclopedia in and of itself. So, we have specialized as teams of people that pour into these things and have enormous amounts of high quality content there. So thank you, Saul, for plugging that. That is totally crucial in best understanding all of these things that we're talking about today.
My pleasure.
Hey man, well, it's been a good time. It's time for either a bike ride, maybe a bike ride to get a burrito, something like that. What are you thinking?
Yeah, I think I'm feeling carnitas today. So yeah, I think a burrito sounds good.
Okay. Yeah. You head down to Mission Street?
Oh yeah.
Okay, attaboy. I'm jealous. Well, thanks so much for your time. Thanks everybody for tuning in and staying with us. We had a ton of fun talking about Turbo Active. This is a great thing. It's good for you. It's good for the planet. It's good for all of us. Let's be active. Let's be turbo active. And we'll see you next time. Thanks a bunch, Saul. We'll see you, I don't know, whenever things return to some form of normality.
Thanks, Jared. Thanks, everybody.
Okay, take care.